All right, guys, welcome back. Episode 31.
EYL 31.
Episode 31 of the Earn Your Leisure podcast. So today's a special episode for us for a few different reasons. It's the first episode that we've had two guests.
Yeah.
So we're breaking new boundaries.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about a lot of things that we haven't talked about yet. Yeah. But before we go into the episode, August 22nd, we are coming to Houston, Texas to do our meet and greet networking event. We've done it in 3 different cities so far: LA, Brooklyn, and Atlanta. So this is the 4th installment of the network meet and greet. And the purpose of the network meet and greet is really for us to interact with our supporters, but more importantly, to bring people together. And, one of the most important things in business is relationships.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times you might live in the same city as somebody, you might live in the same neighborhood, but you never really interacted with them on a business level. You never know how somebody can help you. Like that might be your business partner, might be your real estate partner. You never know.
Yeah.
So we want to just bring the people out, and it's going to be dope. It's going to be dope.
I think there's like a misconception. Like people think like we're going to be having a seminar.
It's not a seminar.
It's for people to meet and greet with each other. Because even when we leave that city that we're in, like the relationships that you've developed at that meet and greet will still be there.
The meet and greet is a vibe within itself. It's a whole vibe. It's not a seminar. It's a way, as I said, to interact. But it's dope because people come and then they interact with us, and then we bring some of our guests with us. We definitely going to bring some guests with us. And they talk to them, and then they get some advice, and then they network with each other.
It's like a live episode, really.
It's like a party with productive tendencies. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's something productive.
Productive character.
Yeah, you have a couple of drinks, and it's just it's good energy. It's good vibe. So Houston, we need you guys to come out. RSVP. The link is in our bio on our website, and it's under the events tab. So we're looking forward to touching the town and seeing everything that Houston has to offer, for sure.
Yeah, man.
For sure. So
looking forward to that.
All right, so we're gonna get right into it. We have a very special episode today. We have Lenny Williams and Jeff Dess. So this is interesting because both of these gentlemen work at colleges.
It's back to school time. Right now is the time when college is back in session again. Right?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
The fall semester has begun.
Yeah, for sure.
Timing.
That's a fact. So they both work at Jersey City University. Lenny is a business professor, and Jeff is the director of student leadership. Jeff used to be a professor as well, but they're not like your typical professors or like college administrators.
They look like the type of professors I wish I had.
It's a little different. So they put a different swag on it. And, they're pretty major. They've been all over. They've been featured on CBS, Fox, Boston Globe, Ebony, Black Enterprise, Hot 97. They've done TEDx talk. So, they have an interesting outlook on education. They take a different approach on education. We're going to talk about education and a few other different topics. But first and foremost, thank you guys for joining us.
You're welcome, fellas.
Appreciate it.
Thank y'all, man. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll jump right into it. So you guys are college professors, right? And college is something that is it's a hot topic, and it's something that triggers a lot of emotions in people, especially nowadays. It's like anytime we put a post on Instagram about college, we get 1,000 comments and people saying like it's a scam, don't waste your money, and other people saying like all kinds of stuff, right? So
thanks, guys.
I'm just going to jump right in. I'll just jump right into it. Is college still necessary to be successful, or was it really ever necessary? But in today's society, is college still necessary, still needed?
I think that college, it's not needed. It's something that you can do. It's something that's possible. I think it should be an option, right? I don't think it should be forced upon that people have to go to college. I will say there's other ways of being successful and going to certain fields that college is not needed as much as it was 5 years ago. But some things you do need, like if you want to be a lawyer or a doctor or you're in the STEM fields, like college can be very productive. But then there's some other majors where honestly you can learn on YouTube, or you can learn by reading books, or you can learn by just doing. So I don't think it has to be a necessary thing to go to college, but I do think it should still be an option.
Yeah, I think also one of the biggest things about college are the networks and the relationships that are made. So it's very far and few in between that you get to sit in a room with a doctor, a future lawyer, a future dentist, a future teacher, and have conversations that are not about your fields of study. And because we all know that once we get into our real lives after college, it starts to become a little bit closer in the bubble where you're just dealing with people who have similar interests. So college, for that particular space, there's not many other places that create that type of environment.
Right.
And academically, there are some fields that do still need it. But, I think that these institutions, a lot of them are just not created for the benefit of the students. I mean, there are a number of colleges and universities that are doing that work, but I think there are a lot that are scamming people. And I think there are a lot that are not doing the work.
Yeah, it used to be looked at as a badge into middle class life. Right? Like you had to have that piece of paper if you wanted to get a good job, get a house. Like that's going away with. Like what Lenny was just saying is like some things we're just going to learn on the fly. Like we say this all the time. We have no training in broadcasting, but we're doing a podcast, right? Like we're learning these things as we go. And I think like, yes, there are options that you can do outside of going to school, but if there are careers like lawyers and doctors, like you said, then yeah, it's mandatory, man. I'm a college guy, right? Like we had to do it in education. But like I said before, like I feel like I could have done it out of high school had I given the proper training rather than 7 years of dedication to that career. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think what college does is we live in a society where image is very important, right? So what college does is that it gives you a badge to say, okay, I have a certain level of success already built in because I've completed my degree.
Yeah.
So now I can at least speak to you on an intelligent level and I can be taken seriously, which is not always the case, right? Because there's plenty of people that graduated from Kanye said people graduate from college but be still stupid.
Yeah.
That happens all the time. You know what I'm saying?
Every year that's happening.
And then you got some people who never went to college who are brilliant or never finished college that are brilliant.
Absolutely.
So my personal opinion on it is that I think that college is beneficial. It can be beneficial from the social standpoint, specifically from a social standpoint and growing as an adult, right? Because, and especially if you go away to college, that's probably your first opportunity living on your own and you mature, you develop certain relationships, you meet people. That part you really can't get just going out of high school into the real world. You can, but it's a lot more difficult. You're not in an incubator where you're just around 1,000 people and you can just develop those type of relationships. It's not easy to do that in just real world life. But I feel that a lot of times people are misguided, right, when they go to college. So this is my next question as far as, one of the biggest things for college for me is majors, right? So you guys are on the inside, and I saw that even when I was in school. Anybody that doesn't know, I have a communications degree. I don't have a business degree. So, but when I went to school, they told me like, look, just get a degree. It doesn't matter. Yeah. If you're not trying to be a doctor or a rocket scientist, it doesn't matter. And it honestly didn't, because when I graduated, so I'm a financial advisor, but when I graduated, in order to do what I had to do, I had to pass like 3 different tests. So I had to study for like 9 months. So it doesn't matter if I would have got a business degree or not. I still would have had to study. So it's kind of like I went to college after I went to college anyway. And now I have my licenses, so I can do whatever I want to do. So, but I could have had an art degree. I could have had any kind of degree, right? So how important is it to pick the right major? And how do you determine what is the right major?
So this is for parents and people guiding students for college. So before I was a professor, I used to work in admissions. So the most important part when talking to parents or talking to students is when you're choosing a school, especially when it comes to majors, your major should be a top 5 major within that school. What I mean by that is top 5 within enrollment, and also they have placement for companies that deal exactly with your major. And if you're not in those like top 5 areas for your major, what can happen, honestly, is you can be 2 years in at the school, and if there's not enough students enrolled in that program, your program gets dropped, and now you're still at that college. So it's very important as we guide our students to tell them to go to college. Yeah, that's great, but please make sure whatever field you're trying to go into is 1, a popular major within the school, 2, has the partnerships outside of the school with the different companies, and then last but not least is the mentality of knowing where the United States or where your country or where you're living at is going to be the next 5 years as far as the job market and careers and what's going to be in demand. I always say this mentality of not 5 minutes from now, start thinking 5 years from now. Right. So when you're making that decision, what does a communications degree look like 5 years from now, right? What does that field look like? Is it even going to be around? Photography, is that something that you really have to go to school for when you can potentially learn that? So that's kind of the key when picking your majors, is making sure that the school provides the resources, but can also place you at the job. But it also is in demand for the next few years.
I couldn't agree more, man. Like a lot of times, especially in our community, when our kids think about college, the first thing they think about is the athletics, right? Like, I want to go to Duke, or I want to go to North Carolina, I want to go to UConn, right? And when you get there, if you're not there on athletics, it's like, well, I want to study communications. Well, that's not one of those majors that is one of the best things at that school. So, like, you should be looking past just like, yo, I'm alumni and I go to that school for the sports, right? It doesn't mean as much when you come out of UConn with a communication degree.
Well, I have a communications degree.
No, I'm saying at UConn. But I want to go back to what you said. No. I want to go back to what you said, because you said that it doesn't matter. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter if you're on an athletic scholarship. If it matters to a guy like me who was like, I'm studying physical therapy and I don't want to be a physical therapist.
Right.
And I've paid $30,000 for 4 years. It's like, this matters a lot, right? Like, now what do I do? Do I have to continue going when I don't want to do this? Or do I have to figure out, what can I do? Like, that, I kind of fell into that thing. It was like, the school I was at, it was great for physical therapy. I couldn't pass the science classes. I'm like, yo, I'm not going to be a physical therapist. I got to figure out what I can get. And gratefully, I was able to go to school with a health science degree. And I was like, all right, well, what does that even mean?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I had to start figuring out, like, what's going to happen now?
We talk about this all the time. And Jeff, in particular, use this analogy of, in everything else, you buy something, you challenge to make sure that the service that they're providing is correct, right? And I feel like people are not challenging some of these schools when they're paying all this money. You're paying, and maybe because you're not physically using cash and handing over $50,000, you're not seeing the money, so you maybe don't care as much as if you're going to a restaurant. Like, Jeff always says about, if you order steak and they bring out chicken nuggets, are you going to eat the chicken nuggets, or are you going to say, I ordered steak? And many times students are paying all this money for a school and they're not providing the services that they're promised, and they're not challenging the school, right? Or asking questions before. And I don't know, maybe it's because, again, you're not physically handing that money over and you think like, oh, I'll just get a job and I'll pay it off later. But I think you should really treat it like everything else you purchase in life.
That's a problem, especially in our community, man. Like, we don't know how to advocate for the things we want. Like, I've seen it over and over with parents not being able to advocate for the kids, but then the kids grow up and they don't know how to advocate. So if they are being mistreated at school and the things are not being provided, it's like, who do I talk to?
Well, I was going to ask,
like,
how do you challenge the system? Because, that's like going up against the government.
That's
a big system. How do you challenge that?
So I don't want to say like challenge the system. It's simple things. So if there's like a college fair at your school, like every school, typically at a high school, they bring in college representatives. Instead of asking questions, like students get these questions from guidance counselors and some people, I don't know where they get these questions from, like, what's the percentage of student success at your school? Like, that's not a question you should be asking. You should be asking, look, I want to be an engineer. How can this school help me become an engineer? How can this school help me become a biomechanical engineer? Like, whatever. What are the tools at your school to get me there? But also, is this major a popular major at your school? Can I talk to somebody at the institution, the career center, and find out how many people you placed at a job in the last 3 to 4 years?
That's important.
Like, like those type of questions need to be asked. And unfortunately, we don't provide those resources and tools enough. And that's why we created the platform that we create. That's part of the things that we do, is to let students know, like, you do have a voice, number one, and number two, to ask those type of questions before spending all of this money.
Yeah. Jeff, I wanted to ask you a question. We spoke off camera about the hidden curriculum.
Yeah. So the idea, it kind of goes into the aspect that the students don't know who to ask. So that there is that problem. I don't know where to go, and the institutions are not doing the job properly. A lot of institutions are not doing the job properly in creating a space for students to understand things like acronyms that students don't know. So I don't know what FAFSA might stand for, and that's talking about financial aid. If you don't know what that means, then you're out of luck. If you don't know what the Bursar office means, and these are the things that are just directly dealing with your money.
Sounds like foreign language already.
It's already, right? So you don't know what these things are. So I think it's just essential for, and this is where I think the big problem is that there are institutions that are about creating careers for people who want to be educators. So they want to go up the ladder and become vice presidents and become deans and become provosts and presidents of institutions without caring about the students. So then they create these platforms and they create these spaces where the students cannot succeed. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There are academic institutions that are out there primarily just to build careers and primarily just to make money. The proper institutions that are doing the work are the ones that say we are going to make sure that you know who to speak to. And with the hidden curriculums, that just means that there are things that are being hidden in regular nomenclature. So it's saying we know what it is, but a 17-year-old does not know what that is. And we expect them to know what it is, then succeed in that space, and then excel beyond that. And then by the time they hit to year 2 or 3, we see the retention level drops because the student doesn't know what the term retention even means. So we're saying we want to keep you here, but are we even doing the work that needs to be done? So ultimately, at the end of the day, that's where we have to start to do more work, is saying, what are the students getting and who do they need to speak to? So to really touch on the comments that we were just saying, one of the things that I can tell all people who are sending any of their students to college or are going back to school themselves is that you have to really find particular individuals on your campus. I can't stress it enough that you have to get involved. So that means you have to find somebody who's already doing the work and make sure you align yourself with that. Find the Jeff or the Lenny on your campus and sit in their office, introduce yourselves, because what ends up happening is I'm the one that's going to put you in touch with this person, this individual to help you succeed. Because doing it by yourself is literally impossible.
Nah, we was talking off camera too, and it's difficult because I think my experience is a little jaded because I played basketball. So when I went to school, I was on athletic scholarship. So if anybody's not familiar, athletes, it's different, especially at a Division I school. So when I got to campus, we had our own study hall just for the athletes. We had our own advisor just for the athletes. Our books was free, and they would stay on us, like make sure like where you doing, like you just going to class. What I mean? It's like, so it's easier because it's more structured. But for somebody that's just going to college on their own, and especially if your parents didn't go to college, so you're first generation. Right. It's a lot that goes into college that's different from high school. Like I remember the valedictorian of my school a couple years ago that my high school that I went to. He's a lot younger than me, obviously, and I spoke to him. He's in Harvard, and I was asking him like, "How you doing at Harvard?" And he's like, "I wasn't prepared." Mm-hmm. This is the valedictorian of the school. He's a smart kid, obviously, but he's like, high school was just so easy for me. And I'm in Harvard, and it's just way different. And he was like, I never realized how much I wasn't prepared until I was in that position. And I think that happens all the time. And like you said, a lot of times, unfortunately, especially, you might have some family issues, whatever, kids just drop out. Because, you fall behind a couple semesters, and let alone not even talking about financial issues, just social issues and just dealing with school and structuring your time. It's like, how can somebody fully equip themselves for making that jump from high school to college?
First, you sign up with Trill or Not Trill. But to fully equip yourself, it takes a lot. And this is where we have to really invest. We were just talking about that off camera too, about how much money you place on a college degree, whether you're going there for free or you're paying full tuition. There's no, outside of a house, there's no larger investment that you're really making probably throughout your life. And in the same way that you invest in a house, you're searching for multiple houses. But then even before that, you want to know, how is the house, how was it built? What do I have to do to fix this space? What do I have to do to make sure that my family, if I want to start a family, goes in here? Right. It can't just be, let me just show up, pull up, and figure out the rest.
Return on investment.
Right. And so what people have to do is really start to invest in a child and a student's education before they even get in there and find the programs. Because colleges and universities, some of them will do it, but a lot of them will not, and say, listen, we're going to give you a 2-day orientation session to figure out how to succeed in college. And, you in there trying to holler at other people, you in there trying to have fun, because they're also doing that too. Because there's a DJ at that thing.
Got a party every the registrar director's there,
Yeah, you sitting here thinking like, man, I don't even know what registrar is. And I remember, like, as a college student, I was like, is it register? And they're like, no, it's registrar. And I'm like, why? What does that even mean?
Right, when you're registering for class.
Correct, when you're registering for class. So there are these simple little things that that students aren't prepared for. And so for me, I just think that you have to invest in the same way that you would invest in a house, the same way that you wouldn't buy a car without making every possible detail before it. You have to do the same thing.
And I think the key is invest past financials, because a lot of people always talk about college and investing, and it's only the financial piece. When we're saying about investing, we're saying do the research as well, and understand where college is going, what colleges are doing, the different degrees, because it can be really beneficial for you.
And it's also very important, I think, what Jeff said as far as to find people on campus that know the deal. And because that helped me out a lot as far as like when I first got there. I had somebody, shout out to my man Jarrell, he's from the Bronx, and he was a junior when I was a freshman. He was on the team, and he was seasoned. He was there for 2 years, so he kind of explained to me, like, take this class.
Right.
Don't do this, and have this many credits, and like this professor is cool. And he kind of walked me through it. And from there, I was able to have a smooth transition. But I think it's important to have that mentor. I don't know if schools have programs like that.
They do.
And then the other thing before we talk about, like, even with the mentors, is don't get too caught up on titles as well, right? Looking for somebody with a leadership title to be your mentor. There's just people on campus that literally run the campus but don't have any fancy title.
Yeah, it could be the person that works in a bookstore.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They see everybody.
And they've been there for 20 years. So
Exactly.
they know exactly what books to get. They know exactly where to go. There's the person who's cleaning up the student union building. They know, hey, listen, you need to join this club, or hey, you need to talk to Jeff because Jeff knows who everybody is. And so that's where, we always talk about the difference of what a mentor means. So we tell people, number one, you need a digital mentor. And a digital mentor is somebody that is online, that has an online presence at that institution or otherwise, that you can just watch what they're doing. And that might just mean I'm watching somebody's Instagram feed or Twitter feed and saying, all right, you know what? I need to just know because this person is providing a wealth of information. There's a generational mentor. So that means you also need to know somebody who is from a different generation than you are, younger and older, who have different mindsets and different viewpoints that you can say, all right, this is the generational mentor that's older than I am, that's going to be providing me the traditional sense of leadership. But then here's this person that's also maybe a little bit younger than I am, that I can give them information, and then they give me back some information.
And then, like your boy that you said at your school, be what we call a peer mentor.
Right.
Somebody that's in that same age range, same age bracket, doing this, the same things that you're doing, and that's a fellow peer of yours that can really help you out.
It's important.
Nah, for sure. All right, so now we're going to go into the next segment. We're going to talk about the financials, and we're also going to talk about Trill or Not Trill. So, yeah, we got some
I love
more
that
gems
part.
coming up.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to talk about the number one thing when it comes to school is how to pay for it, right? Money.
Like we said, man, it's the biggest financial decision that they're going to make. And they have, especially high school students, they got about 3 years. And you're making that decision at 18. Like a lot of people won't get approved to get a loan for a house. They probably won't. They may not get approved to get a loan for a car, but they will get approved for student loan.
Nah, student loan is real, and it's something, like I said, once again, I was fortunate not to have student loan because I had a scholarship, but I have a brother and sister, and they both have student loan. I think they both still paying on their student loans.
I'm still paying myself, my brother.
And they both older than me.
Yeah.
But student loans is real. Financial aid is definitely real. All that is real. So
And you can't escape it. No filing for bankruptcy on student loan.
oh, they gonna want their money.
Yeah.
Rain, sleet, hail, snow.
You know that.
They gonna want their money.
That's
Rain,
it.
sleet, hail, snow.
Sally Mae works than 50 Cent, man.
Word up. Navigate, thank you.
So, but like, what's some hacks that parents, because a lot of parents listen to our podcast and might have children in college or children getting ready to go to college. What's some hacks that and even children or young adults can use to minimize the cost of college?
One of the big hacks for high school students is taking college courses while you're in high school. Now, some high schools and some districts provide that, and they're called like articulation agreements. Another fancy word, another fancy higher ed word. But they're called articulation or dual agreements or partnerships, where a lot of community colleges now and some four-year schools are trying to build upon their enrollment. So what they're doing is they're allowing high school students to start taking classes at a lower rate or for free. So that's something to really look at in your area, your region, your district, especially within the community colleges. Your kids can take some of those level 100 courses at a lower rate.
How do you
Are
do that?
they going on campus to do that?
You can go on campus. So you can call, what you can do is you can call, most colleges have what they call like a pre-college program, pre-summer program, summer academies, and look inside of some of those programs, those summer camps, and maybe don't send your kid to maybe a sports camp in the town. You send them to a business academy camp at, like, let's say a PACE university, and then they can potentially get credits for class while they're at that camp. So that's a way to kind of look at it. I would look at your local community colleges first. Give them a call. A lot of them do allow high school students to take classes on Saturdays and at night. So that's something that you can definitely look out for. And you can go in as what they call another fancy college word, like a non-matriculated student.
That's a good word. Yeah. I know that word.
I think another thing too is to just be honest about going to community colleges. So community colleges are way less expensive than four-year institutions are.
Right.
And so if your student is not fully prepared, because they just don't know. I mean, at 18, you just may not know. And at 18, I thought I was going to be a high school basketball coach teaching English classes in my old high school. And that's what I thought I was going to do.
Right.
And I went into college thinking that was the plan. And I realized that I didn't want to do that at all about 2 years into the game. And so I don't know if community college was particularly for me, but I paid for those 2 years, and I paid a lot of money for those 2 years. And for some people who are just not quite sure if they want to go to college or if this institution is, go to a 2-year and bang out 2 years of college that are going to be a lot less expensive, and then succeed at those 2 years, and then you can get into whatever school you want. I mean, Harvard is giving away full scholarships to students who excel at a community college, as are so many other excellent institutions. So, I think that's another way to minimize some of the costs. And another thing I wanted to add is alumni offices are a secret, hidden money giving space. It's called advancement, at most universities, but your alumni offices are always collecting money from donors who are saying, we want to give money to a Black male student from upstate New York who enjoys watching soccer. And they literally will say, that's the only way we're going to give $5,000 to this program. Or we're going to give $5,000 to a student who's involved in the Haitian Students Club. And that's the only way we're going to give $5,000. I donate to my school, and I give money only to the Black Student Union that helped shape my career. So we have money that we give to, you have to be involved in that club. But students don't know because they don't always announce those scholarships. They're just there on the website that nobody knows. Mm-hmm. So I tell students once a month, go into that office and say, are you offering any scholarships? Right. And they will be there.
And then for those people, I mean, we both did it. We both donated and created our own scholarships. I created one at a community college, created one at this high school. And for those people that are watching that don't know how to give back money, you can call the foundations and advancement and alumni offices at these colleges and do a $250 scholarship or a $500 scholarship to help students as well. Another misconception is that you have to finish a community college in order to transfer. That's not true. Every school is different. So, for example, in New Jersey, where I live, there's two things that I want to kind of put out there. There's two things. In New Jersey, let's say you have 12 credits in a 2.0, you can transfer into most four-year state schools in New Jersey. 2.5 into most state schools in New Jersey. New Jersey also has another program, and most states do have programs like this called NJ Stars, where a student maybe didn't do particularly well on their SATs, but they're in the top 20% of their top 10% of their class. And if you're in the top 10% of your class, you go to college for free, community college. Then when you go to community college, if you get your associate's degree and you have a 3.2 GPA, you can get another scholarship to go finish your bachelor's degree at a four-year college, and that'll be at NJ Stars 2. So NJ Stars 1 is community college. You can transfer out, and then you go into NJ Stars 2. So these are the type of programs that they have in a lot of – I just know that particular because I'm from New Jersey, but they have these type of programs within the states. So don't get too caught up saying, well, I'm top 20% of the class. I want to go to this big school. Yeah, your top 20% might be different from another high school. So you might not get as much money as far as scholarships. So take advantage of the scholarships that you do have, maybe at that community college, and then go on and then potentially transfer and get scholarships as well. So because there's transfer scholarships too.
As you're talking, I'm listening because we do this project with the kids who are going into college. Like even saying associate's degree, they have no idea. So that's traditionally 56 credits.
Right.
And then obviously a bachelor's is when you finish traditionally 120 credits of school.
Right.
That might take 4 or 5 years. Hopefully, right? Because it's going to cost you every time you don't. But
and on top of that, after a certain amount of credits, after I think 160, I want to say, you run out of financial aid.
Yeah.
So you can just continue to go to school. They'll let you go to school. They don't care. But your financial aid you can exhaust your financial aid.
That's important. And I was going to say, in addition to that, there's a misconception with community college, like you said, after those 2 years, you transfer to a 4-year school. Like when you graduate and you go into your career, nobody's looking at like,
Right.
yo, what junior college? You transfer from community college. And then New York State has now, like in the past 2 years, they started the Excelsior program. So state school is also a good thing, right? If it's at least, it's less than if you went to a private school, right? So if you go to state school and you live in New York and you know your parents make under a certain amount of money, you can have I think room and board for free, and the tuition is lowered as well. So that's another option. If community college is like it's not something you want to do, go to your local state school if you live in New York. And then I think the only requirement is that you have to work in the state 4 years after you, or however long.
Yeah, a lot of schools are doing, you know, if your parents make $70,000 or your household income is $70,000, you go to school for free.
Right.
That's something that's happened in New Jersey where all the community colleges will be free starting September. These are the type of programs that you should know. But most importantly, you just brought up a really good point. Understand what a public college is and a private college, right? 9 times out of 10, a private college costs more than a public college. And it doesn't mean that, and it goes back to what I said earlier, it doesn't mean that they're a better school. It's literally because they're privately funded. So it's a little bit different when it comes to how much they charge for tuition. So it's very important to know what a public college is and a private and know the difference.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, because I actually did a podcast before and somebody asked me that question and I was saying that nobody cares, like especially if you plan on getting a degree outside of the first degree. So like if you know you're gonna get a 4-year degree and you're going to a 2-year school, or if you know you're going to get a master's degree, right? They only care about the last degree that you have,
True.
Right.
and that school that you went to. So
Very
like
true.
Barack Obama is a perfect example. He went to his first school that he went to for 2 years is like some no-name school in California. Then he went to Columbia, and then he went to Harvard after that, right? When you hear the stories, it's only that he went to Harvard Law and he graduated from Columbia. They never say the first school that he went to. It doesn't matter. But you save a lot of money, you prepare yourself, and you grow. So a lot of times, I'm not the best person to give this speech because I went to the University of Hawaii, but you might have to humble yourself and stay home, right? And learn the ropes, and you know, stay at home for a couple of years, and then go out on your own. Or you know, you might just sacrifice for 4 years, stay at home, save money, go to your local school in your area, your state school. You might not get the same joy as, you know, going out on your own and, you know, going to a crazy destination. But the grand scheme of things, it might make a lot of sense long term.
That's my story in itself, right? I stayed home. I went to school locally, right? But what I did during that time was I was able to get experience. Whereas somebody who comes out of school and is looking for experience, I already have 4 years on you. So sometimes when you go to a career or job, it's like, yeah, you have this, but do you have the experience? Like I'm doing that as I'm going to school, and obviously, I don't have to pay for room and board or anything like that, so it helped in that way.
Yeah, and also look at another good point about experience. Also look at the career centers within the college. I know in my junior year, my internship was also counted as credits, so it could be considered like a co-op program. So your class can actually your job can actually eliminate you taking a certain class because the work that you're doing, the experience that you're doing is a learning experience, and then they'll give you a professor to kind of, you know, follow you along, and then you write a paper about it in the semester. And not only did you get paid to work, but you also got credits, which saved you money as well.
So Jeff, you have an interesting story about J. Cole.
Yeah, so you know, this is the thing about college. So this kind of goes into this conversation about how to find money and how to be more successful in it. So I went to St. John's University and I went to school with J. Cole, and you know, I was president of our Black Student Union, which was called Haraya, and at that time, we were the largest organization. They had a massive budget, over $100,000. And what we were able to do was I became president of that. And becoming president of that, they gave me a $5,000 stipend. So right there, I got an extra $5K that I didn't have for doing some student work. On top of the stipend, with that budget, I was able to also bring in a bunch of different speakers. I mean, Cornel West, Maya Angelou, all these people that I wanted to meet, we had the money to bring them in. Now, the J. Cole piece is leveraging the networking opportunity. So if you're going to go to a college, I don't care what school it is, I want you to go in there and make sure you meet as many different people as you possibly can. Get yourself into every room. And so when I think about Cole, one of the things that, I remember Jermaine was just rapping in the random open mic or rapping in the residence hall in the dorms. And then that flipped into him getting involved. He eventually became president of our Black Student Union. And then when that happened, he always had a crowd. There was always 500 people that were guaranteed that were going to buy the mixtape, that were going to come out to the show, that were going to support him at the open mic, that were going to go out to this. And me, I see it all the time as we do speaking gigs, I still perform poetry. Half of my audience are people from St. John's from my undergraduate career. So I tell people, make sure that once you get in, get yourself involved, get yourself entrenched in the university, because that's how you get them to start paying you back. And that's the thing. School's really expensive, but I'm going to find out, how do I become a resident assistant? And a resident assistant is when you're in charge of a residence floor and you're in charge of a dorm floor. They pay for your housing. Right. And I did not pay for housing for 3 years of my college career. And when you get into those spaces, I was an orientation leader, which were the people who introduced the people when they came to college. I got paid for that. So that's where you find the money. You leverage the money by the network, by the capital of the individuals, as well as the capital that the school has itself.
And you said something interesting. You said that J. Cole, being the president of the Black Student Union, he was in a unique position because he booked concerts. So then he always opened up for them, right?
Yeah, it was fascinating. I mean, I remember, when I was rapping back in the day, that was the same thing. I'm like, I put on my little resume, I opened up for Kanye, I opened up for Kweli, I opened up for Common, and he did the same thing. Every time we had a major artist, he was one of the performers that opened up for it. And then that just, again, creates more leverage, creates more opportunities. You get practice, and you didn't pay a dime. You didn't pay anything. You use the studio that's on campus. You use every possible resource that they have, because they're taking the money from you.
Right, seeing your tuition.
They're never gonna say, hey, you know what? It's okay. You don't have to pay today. So I'm gonna say, listen, they're never gonna say that, right? So I want the studio. I want the gym. I'm taking everything that this school could possibly give me.
And he was like a straight A student or something like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was a good student from what I heard. I mean, I wasn't in the classes with him, right? But he was. I mean, and that's the thing, is that I can't stress, and I'll say this over and over again, you have to succeed in that space. So do everything you possibly can to leverage every opportunity that they have.
So that's interesting because, that's culture, hip hop culture and music. And one of the things that you guys do is that you blend culture with education, and you have a company called Trill and Not Trill, right? So that's an interesting name, Trill and Not Trill.
That's right.
Yeah.
Shout out to Bum B.
Bum B. I was saying, that's gotta be.
Pimp C, Bum B. That's UGK.
Yep.
Houston, what up?
Port Arthur, Texas. A little different.
Right.
You're right.
But all right, what Trill and Not Trill, for people that may not be familiar, what does Trill mean?
So for us, I mean, like you said, we got it from listening to UGK. And the idea of Trill, in essence, is true and real coming together, right? So can you be truthful? Can you be honest? But can you keep it authentic? And for us, that's what we do. We're educators who are making sure that we keep it real every single time that we speak to somebody, and we're authentically us also at the same time. And Trill or Not Trill started out as a blog. I used to throw a hashtag on my Facebook pages back in the day saying, is this Trill or is this not Trill? Then I said, if I wrote a blog, would y'all read my blog? And you know how people do. Yeah, we're going to read it. Nobody read it, right?
I got you,
so
man.
Then,
no worries.
We don't read.
That's it. So then the blog picked up, and what happened was I hit up Lenny randomly because we were meeting about something else. And I said, yo, I got this blog that's starting to cook a little bit. Do you want to maybe write about it? And Lenny, with the business background, said, I think this could be larger than a blog, and I think that we might be able to turn this into a business model and a business idea to transform education. And then we put all of our minds together, and then we said, this is what we are. We are going to be the change agents of education. So we are the individuals who are going to take this thing called higher education, flip it on its head, keep it real with everybody that's listening. A president of a school to the lunch person to the student. Every individual, when they see us walk into the room, they're going to understand what Trill or Not Trill really means. And we are a leadership institute that trains professionals, that trains students to make sure that everybody understands what it means to be culturally responsive. That's the term that's another term, right? We're going to put in the dictionary, right? Yeah. So culturally responsive, which ultimately means that we're taking care of the needs of the students. We are interested in what they're watching, what they're listening to, what they're reading, what they're involved in. And that is included in every aspect of the educational
and the needs
process.
of now. We're not using the same thing from last semester. Every semester is different. Every generation is different. There's the millennials, there's Generation Z. So we're able to, continue to be current and make sure that we're reaching every student.
No, that's dope. And I think that that's important too, because, a lot of times we have these narratives of what a professional looks like.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Like, I taught a financial literacy class. And,
let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
I've been teaching financial literacy. Troy has a program every summer for 6 weeks for kids like sophomores and freshmen. And I teach a financial literacy class as part of his program. I've been doing it for like 6 years. And I come in just off the street. Like, I'm dressed that day. That's how I come in. Some days I'm dressed in a suit. Some days I have flip-flops
Right.
and shorts on. So one day in particular, I had flip-flops and shorts on. And somebody that came in to observe it, they were a little disturbed. And he told Troy, like, I don't think that's a professional manner to, like, what are we teaching the kids? And Troy's like, what? What does that mean? He's like, well, he's dressed like, like he's off the street.
Yeah.
And Troy's like, well, that's one of the benefits of his profession. He does whatever he wants to do, right?
Right.
So
Good
I'm
way to
like,
flip it.
yeah,
for
and-
real.
True though.
And this is the thing that we really have to get out the mindset of, to say, like, okay, you have to look like this. Why? Who said that? Like, what I mean?
Right.
There's no rules to that. Like, and that's one of the good things I love about tech. They break all rules.
Mm-hmm.
Like Steve Jobs wear whatever he wants. Mark Zuckerberg wear whatever they want.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. Like, what I mean? As far as, obviously, there's certain environments where you have to dress accordingly. It's just common sense. You don't go to a wedding with a sweatsuit.
Right.
Unless you're Jaden Smith.
Well, he came with a Batman suit. but for the most part, it's like, nah, we this is what we are, right?
Mhm.
So we wear our hat backwards. We might wear Jordans. We might wear Adidas, but that doesn't devalue the information that we're given, right?
And that's the thing. I was like judging him on his character. Like, what he's wearing is not important. What he's delivering is important.
Right.
I had a gentleman tell me, right? I was doing a parent orientation, and I had some Air Max on. He was like, "You're really going to do a presentation for parents in Air Max?" And I said, "Yeah." And he was like, "Well, this isn't really professional." I said, "Yeah, I'm changing the narrative of what professional is." And he was like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Yeah, the guy wearing Air Max is now hiring your daughter to be in this program."
Right.
That's a professional.
See
You
you
understand
later.
what I'm saying? Like, we're
Right.
changing this narrative.
Right.
So, like, I don't judge them on the character. Right? What we're delivering is more important than what we have on. You know what I mean?
Well, that's why schools get left.
Yep.
And I always talk about it every time. I remember my dad used to say, "Listen, if y'all aren't downstairs by 8:15 for the ride, I'm leaving." Right. And that was the test that said, all right, I'm never going to get left again. And I don't ever want to be left. And that's what's happening to these institutions. And that's why it's important for people like all of us that are sitting at this table to be in the educator space, because, we have a new book that's coming out. Quick plug in the fall called, we wear kicks to work. And
Yes,
that
Love
means
the title.
that's just showing y'all that we can pull up to any institution at any space.
Our kid game's all right.
it's-
Nah,
and
man.
it's strong.
Y'all
It's strong.
can't see their feet right now, but listen, they came here today and,
It's strong.
and they stunted on me.
Go to the
And I'm
Instagram
a
if you want to
sneakerhead,
see
and they
closer.
stunted.
I'm here.
They
Yeah.
stunted on us.
Nah,
We go to class like this too.
it's important though. It really is
For sure.
important, and it's like, because I used to see my college professors come dressed however they want. They wear boat shoes, and
Yep.
but it's like they're from a different culture, so it's never questioned.
Yep.
But when we wear what we feel comfortable in our culture, now it's like, wait, what's going on here? Nah, it's what it is. Like, you know what I'm saying?
So we're gonna be honest with us. It changed the game. Us wearing kicks with our suits. Students. We was legit out of college 2 weeks ago, and these two black kids was walking out, and two African American students walking out, chilling on campus, and they literally stopped us. I was like, "Yo, y'all fresh, man. Y'all really."
Yo, it's the
I don't know.
language.
I don't even know. Like, I don't know what y'all here for.
They were like, yo, y'all are basketball coaches.
Like, what y'all doing here?
It's the unwritten language.
And
that
it's
y'all-
funny, those same kids ended up in our presentation, right? And they volunteered, and they came up to us after. They emailed us and was like, "Listen, we love to just build with you guys and learn from you, and we can learn from them too." So, I really believe, probably at first people were like, "Oh, I'm wearing sneakers to work." I'm sure people said it behind the scenes, but when you are really doing the work, and especially in the college campus, and students are reacting to you the way they are, you can't deny it. You can't deny it. So it's been truly success. It's been a successful thing for us to wear these kicks, because it puts us in spaces and conversations that typically maybe been a little awkward at first, or the student felt like it was awkward. But now it's yo, them kicks are fly. Then it's like, oh, so how's that business course going? Oh, it's not. Come see me. Or how's your financial aid going? You know what? Come see me. I'll make sure we'll get that fixed.
I say this all the time. Like, that's the unwritten language, right? A kid, when he sees those sneakers, automatically he relates to you.
Right.
And a lot of times in education, they don't have people that they can see that relates. I can wear Jordans, and I don't have to say anything to a kid from our culture. He knows that, like, oh, he wears the same things as me. So, like, I already have connection
Right.
with him, right? So it's like whatever I say going forward, he's gonna listen because he's like, yo, he looks like me and he's dresses like me. And wait, he listens to the same music as
Right.
me. We're good.
It's like what we always say, putting the medicine in the applesauce, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, it's also just, it is not just wearing sneakers too. I don't want people to think like, oh, now I'm gonna pull up in some off-whites tomorrow. Don't do that. It's about
Earn your
culture
leisure.
in general. Like, people complain about, oh, Generation Z does this, Generation Z does that, instead of saying, you know what, how can I immerse myself and get myself so involved with that now I can add that to the curriculum so we all understand each other a lot better. But then also lead the traditional stuff that's in there that's important. So it don't have to be sneakers. It could be movies. It could be music. It can be anything that you enjoy. I feel like people in education, they got to disconnect from the things that they enjoy just to help people pass a test or pass a class. No, we got to add that in
They're
there.
the best
Yeah.
actors and actresses, man.
And that's the thing, that kid just won $3 million for playing Fortnite, right? And instead of saying, man, I can't believe a kid won $3 million for Fortnite, you need to start thinking, how do I include Fortnite into my curriculum? What conversations do I need to be having as an educator or as a financial literacy person or as an economist or as a graphic designer or as a storyteller that says, look at this, look what happened here. Now let's show how we can expand upon this idea. But when people are so small-minded, what happens is, man, I can't believe he won $3 million. Man, my kid's gonna start playing Fortnite too. That's just not.
What is that going to do to its health? What about his brain? What about his
breaking
eye?
news? They're spending more time on Fortnite.
It's crazy that
Right.
you say that because even my son, like he was telling me like he wanted to be a YouTuber, and I'm like, all right, let's do it. And then like people was like, that's not something real. I'm like, all right, well, tell the kid that made $22 million last year on
Right,
YouTube.
right.
Like that's real money.
Exactly.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, oh yeah, well, what is this doing? It's doing the same thing that everybody else is doing. Like, you know what I'm saying?
And when that kid, that YouTuber, when he turns 16, am I going to be the one that says, hey, you should go to college and study marketing? I'm like, no.
I think he's figured it out.
Nah, he's
Yeah,
good.
I think he should be teaching the class.
Nah,
Right.
he's good. He's good. All right. So in the next segment, we're going to talk about public speaking, and then we're going to talk about some other things as far as get yourself off the ground as far as business is concerned.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to talk about public speaking. That's something that's very big. But before we do that, I want to talk about something that's in the news lately, and that is a new, I guess you can call it a scandal,
Yeah, for us.
for lack of a better word. And so 40 wealthy families in Illinois, they got caught, or they found out that they were doing this thing where they gave up guardianship of their kids, like when they turned 16, like 11th and 12th grade. And in return for doing that, now on paper, the kid looks like they're homeless, like they're poor, right? And then they get a boatload of financial aid,
Right.
but the parents are like filthy rich. So some people were, Instagram was actually interesting because some people were saying like,
I wish I knew.
no. Some people were saying like, that's messed up, that's bad. But more people were saying like, oh, they just gaming the system. Like,
Right.
I wish I knew that. I'm gonna do that. Like, I'm not mad at them for doing that. So how does that work? Because I know you used to work in admissions, right?
Yeah, so I'm worked in admissions. Of course, I'm not an expert when it comes to financial aid, but I know enough when it comes to finding out loopholes such as that, as I'm gonna call it a loophole, where parents. I read an article the other day. Somebody parents are getting divorces, right, or legally separating. So it looks like they have one parent in the household,
Yeah.
which is crazy. I'm not telling you to do that, but somebody back there like, yeah, I'm about
Quick
to do that.
hack.
But
Hey, man, we're about to break up this marriage.
Listen, Las Vegas.
It's gonna
Strip
benefit. A kid they're gonna be a doctor. It's gonna benefit. But anyway, so pretty much what people do is you can also say your child is paying rent. Your child depends on how you classify yourself or how you do your taxes is the most important part when it comes to FAFSA. So you can do different loopholes as far as being a person that lives in a house and you pay rent. The thing that happened in Illinois. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that it is possible and that stuff is true and people have done it for years. What's tricky is that every university is different when it comes to financial aid rules. Mm-hmm. So what may happen is you'll get this thing called verification and you have to give in a bunch of documents and prove these type of issues or hardships, as they would say. There's also a hardship form. So even on the other side, for people that are struggling, maybe you don't have FAFSA because your parents were literally together, or you was living with your parents, or your parents passed away, or what your financial situation changed. For example, my mom had lost her job when my sister was in school. What you can do is, before she had a job, taxes show that she made enough money. When she lost her job, of course, she didn't have as much money. You can go to financial aid and ask for a hardship form, right? And you can fill out and explain, and it's up to financial aid to make that decision and find you money. So again, I'm not here to police it and say it's good or bad, but that stuff is true. Yes.
Yeah, I remember I got financial aid. It was like $12.
$12.
I went through more paper. I'm like, what we gonna do with this? I couldn't buy a pack of pencils. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Crazy. $12. That's great. That's true.
The middle class gets screwed when it comes to that stuff because they make too much, but they don't really make enough realistically. Because even in New York, you make $100,000. That's not real money.
Yeah. No,
like you know what I mean. So,
schools are $55,000 a year.
Yeah, you're struggling. Like $100,000, you're struggling.
I told you. I mean, I tell the kids every day, like I'm not. There's not a middle class because whatever somebody from the lower socioeconomic status has, it'll be subsidized so that we're on the same playing field, right? So like a kid that their parents don't make as much, like they're gonna get a full scholarship, whereas I'm gonna get $12 financial aid, right? So we're gonna be in the same boat. Matter of fact, you might be in a better position if you take advantage of this.
I think that's an interesting conversation because I had this conversation with somebody who, my friend, he was a doctor and he lived in Wall Street at the time, and we was talking about like what's middle class for New York City, for Manhattan. All right, I'll ask everybody, what's your number?
New York City?
Manhattan.
150, 175?
Middle class?
Middle class.
I'm going to say 200, 250.
I would say 250.
They're going higher, yeah.
I said, as a couple, I said 350 as a couple.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
As a couple,
And I said
that's what I was thinking.
250 as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
You make anything less than 250 in Manhattan, you're struggling.
Struggling.
It's gonna be tough. No, it's going to be
struggling.
tough.
But the thing about it is like, so when you fill out your financial aid form, they doing it the same as somebody in Idaho.
Right.
250 in Idaho, you even in Atlanta, you make 250 in Atlanta, you get a dope house. Like you can, like you living good. So it's like it's really, it needs to be changed because you can't judge that as the sole reason to give somebody money, right? It's like, 250, it may look like it's a lot of money on paper, but in all reality, you can be completely struggling and be dead broke.
You're not getting any financial aid. You're making 250.
No,
it's real.
No. Forget the $12. You're getting zero.
No.
Don't even file.
Now, on the flip side, I will say if you get free or reduced lunch at your school, you should be taking advantage and finding out all the grants that are out there, Pell Grant, Tag Grant, and other grants and programs at these. And every institution is different, so don't go by what you see as like a blanket answer or just one answer, one generic answer. Every school is different. You should really reach out not only to the admissions office, but to that financial aid office and find out, hey, my child has, free or reduced lunch. Sometimes schools offer scholarships at the high school.
Right.
And also, even more important, College Board, if you have free or reduced lunch, you get to take the SAT and the ACT for free twice. That's key. So if you go to guidance, they have to give you that form to fill out or the paper, whatever it is, but they give it to you and you can go to school. I mean, you can take the SAT twice and the ACT twice for free.
So you said two key words those are those terms, grants and scholarships. That's money you do not have to pay back. People need to know that you do not have to pay that money back. That is granted to you. And sometimes it's for the duration of the time you're there, or sometimes it might just be for the 1 year or the semester. So
and there's
always look for so many of them.
So many out there. So, that's key.
And also, let me tell you another trick that schools do, and I want people to know since we're on this financial piece is don't compare scholarship amount numbers to a particular school because every tuition is different. So, for example, the school I work at, New Jersey City University, let's just say, I'm just throw a number out there, make it easy. Let's say it's $20,000 a year to go to the school for 4 years, so it's $80,000. Let's say you get a full scholarship, that's $80,000 as an award, right, over the 4 years. Another school, let's say a competing school, Seton Hall, is $40,000 a year, right? So 40 times 4 is 160, right? So 160,000. The school, Seton Hall might say, we're going to give you a scholarship for $95,000, right? And just give me a scholarship for $80,000. People will go to Seton Hall because the scholarship is more, but you still owe $65,000.
You're gonna pay more,
right? So don't get confused. But people get confused by that all the time. They go, "Well, your school is giving me $20,000, but that other school is giving me $40,000," and I'm like, "Listen, that school is 3 times as much as our school here." So be very mindful when you see those award letters that say that the student is receiving this amount of money. Make sure it adds up or subtracts well with the tuition price.
Now, when they receive that money, right, and this happened to a gentleman I know, like the money is made out to the student, right? Now, that check, how does that work? Do they have to? does the money directly go to the school, or does it go to the individual?
Mostly it directly goes. So it depends. When it's a college merit-based scholarship at the college, it goes directly to the school. But let's say you get a local scholarship or a state scholarship. Right. So for example, my last 2 years of college, I did not have to pay tuition because I had the internship and I got free tuition. Now, in addition to that, I was still applying to other scholarships. I had like over 10 different local scholarships. I literally took the check, went to Bursar, and they gave me a refund check. So I was getting paid technically to go to college, right? I had that much excess funds that I was typically getting paid to go to college. So if it's national merit-based or merit-based through the school, whatever things like that, it's usually paid directly to the tuition. But you can also receive other scholarships where it's just a check they give to you, and then it's written out to the bursar office, and the bursar has to give you a refund.
Got it.
All right, that's good information. Can we talk about public speaking?
Yeah.
Because that's something that is very big right now, right? And a lot of people want to get into the public speaking space, motivational speakers, all kinds of different speakers. But that's something that you guys do. So yeah, can you talk about that?
We can. So I have we both do.
Yeah, we both. I know exactly where you're going.
I have a special feeling about public speakers because, I always go back to this Tupac quote from Hit 'Em Up.
Great song, by the way.
Yeah. So at the end where Tupac goes on his rant, he says, when I first started out, I told y'all this was just about Biggie. And then everybody had to open their mouths with the mother effing opinion. And when he said that, it just really articulates the world that we live in today, where everyone has...
I like how you feel.
You know what I'm saying? Everyone has an opinion. Now, there's nothing wrong with having your opinion. I support it. Talk the talk. But we have so many platforms for people who are not doing the work. And that's the problem that I have with public speaking. So I'm here to help. I'm here to have this conversation. Right. But it's an important precursor to say, just because you have some quotes on your Instagram page,
true,
and you are retweeting Gary V or Eric Thomas
or Earn Your Leisure,
or Earn Your Leisure, or Trill or Not Trill, right? Because you're taking our content and you're like,
put it in your bios.
Yeah, and that's what happens is that people will watch your podcast. Right, they'll be watching your podcast, listening to your podcast, gather information, and then that person will then say, "I'm a financial literacy expert." And I'm just like, "Well, you're not." And then they'll come and then they'll want to be public speakers and say, "Well, I should be speaking on financial literacy." And I say, "What's your credit?" "Well, I've been telling you about this." And I'm like, "Where'd you get your information from?" "Well, one of my main resources is Earn Your Leisure." "Then why don't I just go get Earn Your Leisure?"
Right.
It's
true.
So with public speaking, that's the first thing. If you're one of those people, God bless. I don't support it. But if you're an individual that's really going to be providing content to these individuals who need it, because there are young people and older people who need the help, and you have to be able to support that. So in our space, I think one of the first things is to recognize what is it that you are providing to the audience.
Right.
If you can't say, here are 5 things that I'm going
learning outcomes.
Right. Here are my learning outcomes. Exactly. Right. That you're going to walk away from, then you are not ready to be a public speaker quite yet. So that's number 1. Number 2 is your audience. So I'm not a financial expert. So I'm not going. So when somebody says, "Hey Jeff, can you come talk to us about leadership and financial literacy?" I'm going to say no.
Don't be a jack of all trades.
Don't do that. So make sure that you're very specific in the content that you're delivering. That's what actually separates you from everyone else. Sure, there are a bunch of leadership speakers. Sure, there are a bunch of people talking about financial literacy. Sure, there's a bunch of people talking about mental health. That's fine. Your job is to figure out, how do I separate myself from that particular core group? And you're not going to be able to do that if you're talking about 7 different things at the same time. So those are some of the quick tips about public speaking. And you also have to do it over and over and over and over again. There's a lot of us who thought that, just because we're funny in the group chat doesn't mean that we can be stand-up comedians.
Right.
And you learn that quick when you're a public speaker. My first ever gig was at NYIT, and they said, "We need you for an hour and 30 minutes." And I said, "I've been, leading workshops in my class, and I've been talking to my peoples." I pulled up at NYIT, and at 30 minutes into this speech, I was done.
Question and answer.
Right.
Right. I'm like, all right.
I need an hour worth.
Right. And they say, let's keep it rolling. And you find yourself in there thinking like, man, all right, maybe I could just spit a quick 16. Maybe I can just draw on the board.
Yeah, we're going to take a 15-minute
Let's take
bathroom
a break.
Right. Right.
And so you have to really have that content because you got to be able to do that. And so I remember that saying, I just wasn't prepared. But you got to do that. You got to take that first L to say, all right, this is what I can do to get better. This is what I have to learn how to stand, how my posture works, how my speaking intonations go. All of those things are really important.
Yeah, I think also learn the power of leverage. So a lot of people go into public speaking or want to speak at colleges, for example, and they're charging this crazy amount with no background, right? So being willing to say, I'm going to do it for free, just to be at certain locations or get things on your resume is very important as a public speaker. But I also want to even say there's so many public speakers, and I'm happy to see that it's grown. But I also want people, I've been thinking about a lot. It's just I want people to be doers, man, and do more. I need more people in the classroom, right? You know, if you look around the country nationally, it's under 5% is Black faculty members. Tenure track Black faculty members, maybe less than 5. And it's even, you know, I'm in meetings and Jeff's in meetings and we're usually only Black person in the room, you know, and you want to look at not just speaking, but finding ways to change legislation, create programs, create platforms like this, in addition to you just being a public speaker, because our students already are being oppressed in certain institutions and are already being taken advantage of. And the last thing we need is for somebody to come in and say, rah, 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 get excited and leave.
Or another panel, you know what I mean? I'm sorry. I just feel like, I have a very hard line on some of these things is that enough is enough. We got to start doing some work. Yeah. And I don't know how many times I've been to, hey, the 7 most effective people to learn about leadership in your community while you're wearing natural hair. And also, I don't need that. I don't need all these panels.
And then it turns into like passive shade. And
and people, I'm the best person at this. And then everyone walks out the room with no content. And there are these young people that need our help. And there's a lot of us who are working at NBCs, that are working at Pfizer's, that are working at large banks and institutions, that are entrepreneurs that need to say, as we go in there and perfect our speaking, can we help these students and build for the future? So, you know, those are such essential pieces to the process. And getting paid as a speaker, you think that there's a quick way to just go in there and get these checks, and it's just not. And you know, you might have all this clout, but that clout is not going to get you to return if you can't do anything when you get there.
Right. So, but what is, all right, fair enough. You should have good purpose and you should be educated, assuming you are. Now, what's the steps to actually...
Got it.
Cool. So
I had to get that off my chest first. I'm sorry.
I ain't gonna lie. But I think I always tell this story. Like I posted on my Instagram the other day. I started out in the Boys and Girls Club, right? It was a Boys and Girls Club. My friend of mine, Ron Brangman, shout out to him, told me, I never forget, he was like, I know you want to become, a speaker, you want to get involved. He said, I'm going to give you 2 things. I'm going to give you this space, but I'm also going to tell you that everybody's not going to like you, right? Just know that. Like, you're not going to go in every room and every audience is going to love you. So this is the space here. Have fun. Do what you want to do. And then, 5 years later, Jeff and I are going to like Iowa State, Kentucky, UCLA. But I was humble enough to start in like a Boys and Girls Club where 20 people was in the room. And 15, honestly, low-key was my family. Right, and just pulled up because they didn't want to see me fail. So that's most important is having that humbleness, but also having the expertise, right? So we said it earlier, don't be a jack of all trades, right? So if you worked in HR and that's your experience, and then you also have a little motivation behind you, be able to provide that knowledge you got from being an HR rep, or that knowledge you got from being a financial advisor, and that with the inspiration, now people are going to want you more because you're providing them with things in question. You're providing them with a service or a product that they can actually use, like a tangible thing. So be a tangible speaker more than a public speaker. That's what I want to say. Like, have tangible items in addition to that, but also be willing to say, I'm going to go speak for free. And the third piece is having content. So we started as bloggers, and we blogged to a niche market. Like, we knew people that deal with students at colleges, their office is usually under student affairs. So we knew that there was a student affairs group, and there's region conferences and programs. So we made sure that we implemented our blogs within that audience group so they know who we are. So when we had the blog, we already knew in the back of our heads we wanted to be speakers. So we had the programs ready with the learning outcomes and objectives, and that's how we started getting more involved in the school. So when you are expert, you do get a niche market, and it helps you get paid more, and you understand your pricing and things like that.
Can you talk about the names of the blogs? I thought they were brilliant. We talked about it off camera.
Oh, so some of the blogs that we created in the beginning were like Beyonce and his social change model, Kevin Durant and retention. I know you did one on Justin Bieber.
Yeah, what we did, what Drake can teach you about conflict management, and we also did Nicki Minaj and non-verbal communication. And so, you add all those things. And to just give some other quick tips about public speaking content. So video content is key. So people need to know that you're actually speaking. So people would rather see you speak than hear you speak or a photo. So get the content, and whether you're using an iPhone or a camera, just make sure that you're getting content of you speaking about whatever it is that you're speaking about. And that's how you can leverage it. So sometimes you can go to a school or an institution and say, listen, I'll do it for free, but can you allow me to get video content? Number 2 is whenever you speak, make sure you get a mailing list. So you want people to always know that you're speaking as many times as possible, and let them know, hey, this is what I'm doing. So people will always remember. So that mailing list is really key, and one of the big leverages that's going to allow you to move into different spaces. Another key thing is recognizing in your field or area of expertise, where are the conferences that are hosting content on your area. Right. So for us, it might be student affairs, and there's NASPA, and there's ACPA, and there's NACA, and there's all these specific conferences that have all their specific acronyms, and you want to just be able to know which one fits. And there's literally conferences for everything. Right. So you want to know when are the deadlines to present, to submit a workshop, because that's really how I got in. I submitted a workshop to a conference 5 times and got rejected 5 times. Then I just paid my way to go to the conference as an attendee. Went to the conference and then met and shook hands with every single person possible.
All the speakers, yeah.
Every speaker, every host, and said, how do I get myself into? I was friends with the person who was the MC. The MC introduced me to the person who ran the conference. And then they said, let's see your stuff. I didn't have any content. So then I had to go get content, make content, then show them my stuff. Then they liked it. And then they say, hey, listen, we'll get you as an MC first.
Right.
And then I did the MC and then bodied it, showed up and then killed it. And they said, do you want to do a workshop? Did that. After I did a couple workshops, I said, can I do a keynote? They said, let's test you out. Tested me out, nailed the keynote, got the keynote speech.
Right.
Fast forward, Lenny and I, Trill or Not Trill, we run the conference. Like literally in a 5-year span, I started out as somebody who's getting rejected to now we curate the entire conference and bring in speakers.
What conference is that?
It's called NCSL. It's the National Conference on Student Leadership. It's in Orlando this November for all student leaders. So we bring, there's about 500 students from all over the country that show up. And that's how it started, so you got to just do it over and over
again. And then I'm going to add 2 more tips to that. Another one is for social media. Don't get caught up on how many followers you have. Get caught up again on the niche. Make sure your niche market is following you. So we don't have we have a decent amount of followers, but we have a bunch of decision makers at college campuses that can bring us in or help us run a conference. And then the last piece is writing books, right? So we talked about that earlier. I know we talked about that off camera, is when you write a book, if they can't pay you, they'll also buy your book instead. Or a bookstore can actually pay for your book, and then you can also come in through the bookstore at a college campus.
So let me ask you 2 questions. How do you decide your rate? How is that determined? How is somebody's rate determined? Because I've heard rates from all different people, and they're always kind of different. Yeah, let's go to that question first.
Yeah, so I think, do you want to?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so rate-wise, it all varies. So it depends on what it is that you're what it is that you're delivering to the audience. So for us, our rate is determined. So we have some standard rates, but we also have some rates that say, listen, if you have over this many people that are going to be in the room, then the rate goes up. If I have to travel to LA from New York, then the rate increases from there. So we have a program, and then the program might be an hour talk is a certain rate. If it's a 2-hour talk, that's a certain rate. So we determine it based off of that piece first, but then also looking at the market. So we know that certain colleges and universities are just not going to spend $25,000, $30,000, $40,000 on somebody that's not, DJ Khaled. You know what I mean? So for us, it's important to know how much money that the people are spending. Corporate institutions pay more money than academic institutions. So, you want to be able to know that. And then also just know that, try to find other ways to get the money. So our rates also determine based off of our experience. So for us, your rate goes up when you can say that we've now done this. So when I became a TEDx speaker, we had to change the rate. When I said, listen, now we've spoken at 200 schools instead of 50 schools, that changes the rate. So, I tell people start off low. I am super honest. I did free gigs for a long time.
$100 in bagel.
$100 in lunch, right? And that was for a year where we're just figuring it out. And you're afraid to say, listen, can I do this? But, if you say that, I say you test the waters. And my first gig at a school in Nebraska, this was my first time getting on a plane to speak. They charged me, I think it was $2,000 I set the rate. And I didn't include flight. I didn't include anything else. So I made like almost nothing back. But I knew right there, okay, people are going to pay $2,000 for this. And then you incrementally raise it as the time goes.
That's why I think it's important too. For us, we work in higher ed, so we know what those budgets look like. So getting involved or getting a job, I know this is a big era of everybody wants to be a boss and an entrepreneur. I get it, but being able to get into a job and also using their resources to springboard you is great. I know places like I just seen a recent former student of mine did a public speaking presentation at Chase. That's big for her resume because now she wants to go into public speaking. It doesn't matter. People are not going to ask, how did you get into Chase or did you work? No, they're going to say, oh, wow, you did presentations, professional development at Chase. That helps not only her resume, but helps the pricing. You start to understand how much they pay for somebody like this. So getting involved at your job and using it as professional development, whether it's presentations within the school, within your job, or having the job send you out to different conferences where you can present, that can also help you as a public speaker.
Let's say they email you and they want you, they say, okay, we want you to come in. Somebody a student at a student union organization says, we want to bring you in. Like, what do you say? Like, do you say, okay, I want to come, but this is my rate to come?
No. So the first thing we do, we send you a pre-programmed survey. And I'm gonna be honest, we didn't do this in the beginning, and that's when it got a little tricky. But on the pre-programmed survey, it says budget. What is your budget? Period. So then we now, because we have a team now. Before it was just Jeff and I, so it was a little different. Now we can kind of figure out how can we, based on that budget, what can we really provide for you? Mm-hmm. And it's effective for our side as well as your side. So honestly, just being able to ask the budget. I'm married to an artist, right? And I remember when I first used to send out the form, and she was like, dude, you're not asking about the budget. I don't step foot out the house without knowing what the budget's going to be. So, just like any other field, just ask them and be transparent. And then I always say, whatever their budget is, it's probably a little bit higher than that, right? So then you start to ask for other little things within that.
That was good information. All right. Okay. Well, thank you guys for coming on. We appreciate you.
Appreciate y'all.
Yeah, man, this is great.
Can you tell the people how to contact you, your handles, your website, all the information?
Yeah, so personal handle is at professor.williams. You can find Trill Not Trill anywhere. Just put at Trill Not Trill, and our website is trillandnottrill.com.
Yeah, and I'm at Mr. Jeff Dess, MrJeffDess, on all platforms. And then again, at Trill or Not Trill. We've got a lot of really cool content coming out this fall, a lot of new team members, a lot of new work. So
yeah, man. And if you also work for a company and, we always talk about doing this work and you have the connections or, you can help students get jobs and internships. We know some amazing students across the country. Feel free to reach out to us and we'll help you even come in and speak to our students as well.
You said 200 schools, right? Are they 200?
I mean, we're at, I think that maybe more now.
Yeah, We're close to 200.
Yeah.
Yeah, U.S., Virgin Islands, and Canada. Yep.
Troy.
Yeah, man. So we're just going to call out patreon.com. That's our Proud to Pay program, and it's been going amazing. I got to give a huge shout out to Danita. Danita's from Houston, and we had a call, and she was super excited about us coming. She wants to lay out an itinerary for us. So shout out to Danita and everybody in Houston. And I want to give another one to Amaya, who actually hit us up on Instagram when she saw our post about our program, since we're talking about doing things. And we had an hour conversation just about what she can do in Daytona and some of the things she's doing. She put me on the game. So shout out to her. But yeah, patreon.com /Earn Your Leisure. We have 5 different tiers. Feel free to join at any tier. Our merch is out on earnyourleisure.com. Our website is under construction. We get under construction?
No, it's not under construction. It's just being redone.
Redone?
But it's still up. It's
Yeah,
up
it's
right
still
now.
up. It's still up. So feel free to buy the merch and support that. And yeah, man.
Yeah, Patreon is a community first and foremost, and it's a way to interact with me and Troy. A lot of times people want mentorship, or they want to have real. So you can actually have FaceTime conversations with us, and it also allows you early access to the podcast. More importantly, like I said, it's really a community. We really establish strong relationships with our Patreons, and so that's a way to financially support the podcast, but also build relationships with me and Troy, and just be part of the Earn Your Leisure community for sure. And the merch, I got my merch on. Hustle for Your Last Name. We're gonna be rolling out some new merch. EYL University is coming soon, on its way, and
that means that they're alumni now. Welcome to the alumni.
That's it, man. We in there.
The show, man.
That's it.
Appreciate it,
You know
man.
what time it is.
Sure.
And yeah, Houston. One last thing is Houston, Texas. We are coming on the 22nd, so don't forget to RSVP. And yeah, we'll see you guys soon.
Peace.
Peace.